Hey, it's Soul. Welcome back to Warcraft Weekly, the show that was once a vibrant and positive channel, now down the negativity spiral so many WoW content creators chose to dive into. Literally riling up your viewers is the straw that breaks my camel's back. Farewell. Well, sad to see them go, but you know what? If Ian did a Q&A and he just hinted that the team was considering player housing in the future, you bet your ass you would see me right here telling all of you to pound at the gates and scream, "Give us player housing." That was hardly a scream, but you get it, right? Sometimes I get really excited. Now, let's talk about this week's highlights, starting with some juicy gossip on Bobby Kotick. I found this over on Wowhead, although while the article itself is still up as of this writing, the story seems to have fallen off the news feed, but it's being reported on other outlets anyway. The media discovered legal findings that the CEO had his salary reduced by half, his bonus reduced by half. So why? The company as a whole did well during the pandemic. You could say that it thrived amidst office closures and layoffs, including the sudden shift of Toys for Bob, the makers of Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, to support continued development on Call of Duty. Some suspect the pay cut is Activision Blizzard bowing to pressure from analysts, as well as the general public over CEO pay, which up until now, Bobby Kotick was the highest paid CEO in the gaming industry. Whether Kotick offered to take the hit himself or his board voted on it, whatever. As of now, he's nowhere near that top. No doubt the public discourse played part in this change. It's a total PR move. My take is that this pressure may mostly come from within, PR among its own employees. In the tech world, people come and go. People make lateral movements and suddenly make 30% more than they used to because, well, the market's competitive like that. Meanwhile, in the gaming world, we as fans treat developers whose names we actually remember like they're rock stars and treat their movements within the industry like the latest sports ball drafts and trades. But these so-called high-profile departures write a narrative, whether it's true or not, about the morale, the state of a company like Activision Blizzard. I speculate that for the most part, this move is to improve the relationship between leadership and the rest of the staff. I also speculate that maybe Kotick is putting one foot out the door, and he may not in fact extend his rule as CEO past 2023. I meant to say role, and I typed rule in the teleprompter. That's kind of funny. Anyway, by 2023, Kotick will hit the nice round age of 60 years old. As the longest running CEO of any gaming company, those feel like nice round targets to hit. I should also add in that in a recent interview with VentureBeat, Kotick stated his desire to hire another 2,500 folks across the company. No clue what kinds of jobs or for what segments. So with no context, I'm left wondering, well, instead of 2,500 hires, how about you cut that number like in half and then use that extra capital for, I don't know, the people that you still have, give them increased benefits and pay to increase the slash time paid. Get it? It's a gamer term used for labor. Anyway, this week was a week of discussion, bitching, players pitting themselves against one another after a Q&A between Mike from Preach Gaming and game director Ian Hazzikostas. I was pleasantly surprised with the candor despite the expected non-answers that came from Ian. Both gentlemen treated the topics seriously, with mindfulness of who it is that they're trying to speak for, so I'm very glad that basically last week I was tripping. Things turned out as fine as we could expect. I'd still prefer some sort of compromise between developers making a presentation and just talking to us, and a streamer asking questions based on what little is pieced together. But with a Q&A that discussed a broad variety of topics and not character customization, sadly, it reignited the feelings of unrest and frustration in part of players. People be like, oh, so that's what he has to say about the thing that's important to me. That's it? After all of this waiting? Which is why, again, I would prefer Blizzard to try to be in front of these conversations, because right now it gives this vibe that, oh, he had to be asked about this before finally talking about it. Moving on, but before I get into this week's PTR, I want to bring up the Burning Crusade and its beta, which I admit I have not been keeping a close eye on. This past week or so has been peppered with builds and updates, tweaks, and hashtag some changes. Most recently, we learned from data mined information that there's going to be a deluxe edition of sorts that includes a mount, which also presumes an in-game shop, which also presumes the end of everything as we know it. The comments on Wowhead are particularly toxic, but one stood out. We are not prepared. So let me get this straight. Folks are flipping out over the notion of a toy and a ground mount. Never mind the unknown amount of gold waiting to be unleashed to buy max speed flying mounts within the first week of the expansion, and the economic cluster and player divide that comes from that. No man, it's about Blizzard selling boosts. I'm sorry, boosts. Singular. Anyway, that's wrong, Blizz. Something out of touch. We need to preserve the sanctity of the game with a clear separation of the haves and the have-not, the real players and the rabble. The real game isn't about giving Bobby Kotick more money. It's about letting people buy gold from the gray market and giving them money, and using that to buy boosts from players, real gaming. It's very weird, but I do notice this vibe, this air that lacks enthusiasm from Burning Crusade Classic, maybe? Like a few years ago, if you say Classic in a crowd, there's gonna be more than a few folks that would turn their heads and be like, ooh, I got an instant boner. This week I did a Burning Crusade beta giveaway, and I know my content is more focused on Shadowlands, but still, I expected a better of a turnout. And it's over, by the way, in case you want it in. Maybe I just timed my tweet poorly and I'll consider doing another one in the near future. I voiced my observations that Burning Crusade Classic is attracting people who miss the gameplay of that era, but unlike Vanilla Classic, it might not be doing much to attract people who miss the old world that was lost up until its release, because, we still have it. Or maybe it's because it's Burning Crusade and not Wrath of the Lich King, with smaller raid sizes and an arguably friendlier system of progression. Or maybe because Sylvanas showed that midriff. I don't know. Okay, yeah, I know. So question, are you excited for the Burning Crusade? Or are you excited but just don't care to jump into the beta? I would love to hear your thoughts on this. And now we get into the Chains of Domination PTR. What happened in this build, which came out on a Thursday? Thanks, Blizzard, for making me work late. Sheesh. First off, a few quality of life changes are coming, like skips. Heck yeah! At the moment, there's no Maw skip, which I know is literally 20 minutes of the worst thing ever, even if you can use a Corridor Creeper or an equivalent mount, and you can gain a level from it in only those few minutes, but it's totally the worst. Anyway, at max level, on top of the Chapter 1 skip that's currently there, you can now also skip Chapter 2 of the Covenant campaign, and that happens to complete the entire Torghast questline where you save Jaina and Thrall as well. You can also opt to skip the post-Castle Nathria questline that starts after defeating Denathrius. Now keep in mind that right now on the PTR, the requirement to access 9.1 questing only requires that this Denathrius questline is completed. I can't test this properly because I've already completed these events, but I presume that if there's any preparation to be done before 9.1, you ought to defeat Sire Denathrius at least once on your account so that alts can enjoy these skips when you come around to it. Yeah, you miss out on a lot of anima for what's a pretty brief questline, but it's totally your choice. Quick bit of feedback though, I really think that at this point, apart from the Maw skip, there also ought to be a boost that takes us straight to Renown 40, seeing as how the 9.1 campaign continues at Renown 44. That's going to make for an awkward wait for people who are behind, or characters who are behind. Second, I don't think there's a need to repeat a Covenant campaign that we've already done. So in those situations, just offer another skip so that these alts can immediately access all three of their soulbinds. Do that and problem solved. The game is literally perfect and we can all be happy. Also, another upcoming change, swapping Covenants will refill your conduit energy to full. And now Shadowlands is beyond perfect, yay! Onto Mythic Plus World, we have a single one-line description of what the upcoming seasonal affix may be. Reading from Wowhead, it says, defeat the Jailer's forces to gain cool powers! Exclamation point. And that's it. That's all we've got, and everyone reacted well. No. People lost their freaking minds with speculation, thinking that these will be like anima powers, full-on RNG based buffs that make or break a run. Blizzard, why aren't you listening? That PH, by the way, stands for placeholder, you know, kind of like Mega Soul Ash. For now, we don't know what it's going to be. Like, it could be a thing that we pick up with extra action buttons that allow for mob skips. It might be the ability to control certain mobs and have them fight with us for a little while. It might be a series of, you know, it might be patrols, far off mobs that we'll choose to defeat because we get some predetermined buff, or we'll skip them because, you know, that buff isn't going to be very beneficial, at least not during this affix. Or it could be some random ass anima powers that could make or break the run. But it's got me a little bit excited if this means the meta isn't about pulling the right packs in the right order. I mean, that was cool and all, but you know, I'm just ready to move on. On a smaller but bigger note, the Mythic Plus score has been implemented in this build. And we know how this pretty much works. Like, you see the score, and if it's not high enough, boom, you're rejected. If it is high enough, then you look deeper to see if that record is legit, and if it's not, rejected. And you repeat the process until the group is filled. You cross your fingers, you don't talk to each other during the run, you assume everyone is going to be fine, and then you blame someone who is not you if things go bad. Well, it's going to work something like that, right? Unfortunately, what I'm really looking forward to in Mythic Keystones is not in test currently, as in these separate tabs or options to create lobbies that make it really clear that you want to time a key, or you just want to complete one. I know this can be resolved easily by putting it in the description, but I firmly believe that taking it a step further will help make that whole thing more searchable and clear that this particular run is going to be with a group that has a little bit more time on its hands, that won't be as refined, that is more patient. Sure, people will be looking at scores and achievements anyway, there will be discrimination, but with this tab or this option, there will be a little bit less of it. And if it's even just one half step in a better direction and there's no negative impact, I'll take it. Moving on, folks who are looking forward to the easy path towards mythic level gear via PvP just had a wrench club them in the face. During Season 1, a player who achieved a 2100 rating in rated PvP was eligible to upgrade Conquest gear to its highest levels. All they had to do from there is buy Conquest gear and then farm up the honor to upgrade it. And that's pretty much done and over with, because now, in order to upgrade your gear, you need to not only have that rating, but you must also win at least one match during the week while still at that rating. So, if I got to 2100, big miracle, but if I got to 2100 and I bought a helmet to upgrade, and then I almost maxed it out with honor, but I fell a little bit short, after the reset, I need to win an arena match and have my rating be over 2100, then I can use honor to finish doing those upgrades. Overall, I actually find this to be good. It discourages the less palatable behavior of doing content that you don't want to do just because it's the faster way of gearing for the things that you actually want to do. I also wonder if this is necessary, considering that PvP gear's true effectiveness comes from PvP. So I think this move is almost meant to target PvPers themselves. Maybe it's meant to encourage rated PvP as a career-long sort of thing, rather than, hey, I got a 2100 rating that one time, and then do nothing but farm honor to get every upgrade, and then only after you're done with all of your upgrades dive back into rated PvP. But I can also see some different behavior where someone can do nothing but farm for Conquest until they can afford to buy all the PvP gear from a vendor, and then cap on honor, which by the way is 15,000 at the moment, and then when they do want to do these upgrades, they buy a boost to 2100, or they get that one win at 2100 that they need, preferably on the first day of the week, and then blow all the honor that they have, farm as hard as they can for more honor until the next week, and then repeat the process. That's a big old pain in the butt, right? Possibly lots of paid boosts, or just a lot more arena that a player doesn't really want to do week after week. It's like, gosh, such a chore. It is so inconvenient for players trying to gear efficiently. And I think that's the point. The behavior of true red-blooded career PvPers won't be affected at all by this change, I don't think. but players who play in their respective camps are going to pay even closer attention to how Blizzard will distribute and itemize raid, dungeon, and outdoor gear. What sails over my head though, and fellow PvPers, I'd love for you to chime in, is how this might affect PvP participation overall, like MMR, and how saturated certain rating brackets are going to be. By discouraging these so-called non-PvPers, does this clean things up? Or is more going to have to change to ensure that aberrant behavior like boosting is further discouraged? And finally, we move on to Torghast. I've given a mouthful of feedback based on a previous PTR build, and I have a few more things to share from this week's build. It's kind of positive. The big addition is this one thing, the box of many things. This is not a very inspiring name, by the way, but it gives Torghast a feature that's critical to a more genuine roguelite feel, a bona fide roguelite content loop. This item is obtained from just running Torghast. There might be layer or quest requirements, I'm not quite sure, but I just happened to see a broker who gave me a quest, and then fast forward, now I have this UI here to dump points into. This works kind of similarly to Venari, who's out in the Maw, who still gives upgrades based on Stygia. Only this time, on top of Soul Ash, running Torghast will get you Tower Knowledge, experience that you can throw into perks to help you on future runs. It's a very roguelite staple. Some of these are pretty darn awesome too. Efficient Looter is mechanically like a really janky right now, but it basically lets you auto loot. You can jump into Torghast with these things called blessings, the opposite of torments. Like I got one that is a basic damage and crowd control reduction, and another that has a chance to insta-kill enemies when they reach low health. I can reduce the number of torments that I'm afflicted with, I can give the brokers more stuff to sell me, I can take less damage from elites, and I think I can have way too many anima powers, but who am I to complain? This is one of those situations where early looks can be detrimental to giving good feedback. Like just the other day, I thought about, and I suggested removing torments, and now today, there's a whole progression tree to overcome said torments and then some. But of course, some people will not get over their initial impressions. I don't blame you. Blizzard may have forgot something about roguelites until now, that progression is incremental before it's guaranteed. That while death and failure is part of the experience, walking away with a little something to help you next time is super important to the loop. It's tough because ultimately Torghast isn't really a roguelite. It's a side feature of a MMO, but I'll happily continue giving feedback. And I see this UI and I'm like, dude, I gotta fill this thing up and see just how stupid Torghast gets with all these perks. So I better wrap this up. That's the show. This show really did turn out to be a heck of a week with tons of news and reveals and interactions and doomsaying and optimism, the entire roller coaster of emotion. Looking past disagreements among fans, I would love to believe that in the end, we are all united under this single premise that we are all passionate about the world of Warcraft and its future. Whether you're a 17-year veteran, a seasonal player, a total newcomer, or an ex-player who's looking on the inside. I'm not 100% sure what I have planned for next week. I think I have some fluff content sort of ready to go, but I really want to dive back into Torghast to see how these perks feel. And I have a lot of alts to prep for mission table farming too. Too many things to do, all right? But in the meantime, do some venting on your own here in the channel. What are you playing this weekend? Share that and your other thoughts from this week, whether they're positive or otherwise. Please subscribe to the channel for more of this and all things Warcraft. Consider being a lovely supporter like our super cool Twitch subscribers and our beloved patrons. I hope to see some newcomers soon. And like the video, because you're already awesome, just make yourself just a little bit more awesomer. We'll see you next week, folks. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy. Boom, 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 dun, 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 dun. Someone wanted me to sing the song, and I'm gonna try to improv it with some melody. Da da da, bum bum bum.